This semester, I did an independent study with my Greek friend Jake on 3D rendering, and it was because we did this kind of 3D rendering-ish project last semester using OpenGL. I'm missing the presentation for it because I'm going to Zabrus to work on a Greek dig with pottery and stuff. Here's like an overview of what happened in that. So the first half was, there was no like tangible project that really came out of it. It was just like both of us struggling really hard with OpenGL, and I logged like many hours trying to learn OpenGL and like the C++ interface around it, and also many hours learning Bevy, the Rust game engine. And I got a lot out of that. I'm making a game called Nun Run at some point, which is like Subway Surfers, but like themed around nuns. To jump to like the actual projects, the first one was an ant simulation in Godot, and that was also a great experience because I've never really done any game development before. But this is kind of what it looks like. So it was a real struggle to not use Vim, but I got through it slowly and painfully. You can see, here's what it looks like. I can turn the speed down a little bit. So there's different food sources. These are all just rectangles, because that was like the easiest texture kind of thing to get our hands on at the time. And you can also see, if I zoom in, the little ant models. These are just like little sprite sheets I found somewhere of an ant running along. And these are honestly drawable by hand. It's just like 3 little dots. You can see there's no like crazy skeletal animation. And as they go, they're kind of leaving pheromone trails. And we did this, all the algorithmic programming for this, like from scratch. Like it was mostly Jake who came up with this algorithm. We banged our heads together until we figured it out. Honestly, like in terms of 3D-ness and renderiness, it's like not that graphically impressive. I kind of figured out this gradient thing with the pheromone trails, but yeah, it wasn't all that graphic. But this took us a while to get working in the way it did. You can see eventually the ants will kind of, it converged to their paths. Kind of a strange modern aesthetic we ended up going with in the end. So overall, that was a great learning experience to use Godot. I'm glad I did it. I think in the future, I'm probably going to go back to Rust game development because I like the language a whole lot. But also, like, Godot is so painfully easy. Like, you can just, there's like a function to do most of the things you can even comprehend. It's kind of funny. It's like so easy, it's hard. And Rust is like so hard, it's easy. Kind of inverses like that. But yeah, after the Godot project, we were feeling like a little bit discouraged that we weren't able to make progress in OpenGL, so we actually went back to OpenGL and revisited a shader project. So we decided to make a terrain generator. I think it's called, no, it would be called 3D rendering resources. So if I make this, make and, okay, looks like it made. Okay, you can see we've got a little island thing going on. So that's pretty cool. This was Jake's idea, but that looks a little bit like Cypress actually. So you can see we have different sliders to control this, and all this is like a bunch of different noise functions all in GLSL shaders. You can kind of like gradient them down. And again, this isn't 3D, but what really is the third dimension, if not 2 dimensions with another dimension? Yeah, you can see the big features like can be messed with like this. And then we've got smaller features, which that's currently not hooked up to anything. We have a feature branch going where that does work, but not on this one. This one is pretty cool. It lets you control like how fine-grained it is. You can see it gets very abstract towards the end, but if you keep it at a nice level, it'll like render out to a pretty good looking island. Moisture level is just like how swampy the island is. I want to like continue to develop this and add little cities and stuff at some point. Elevation ramp just makes it so that like mountains will rise up much more quickly. If you max it out, it just turns into this weird abstract little thing. The island bump is how like islandy it is. If it goes up, it's just like a curve function in the middle of the screen. And if it goes down, it'll turn into just like a tiny little islandy thing. That's pretty cool. You can get some pretty aesthetic results with this. Not that though, that's bad. And then other, I'm not sure, that's kind of a development thing. That's looks like some kind of exponential function. And other 2 is currently not hooked up to anything. What's cool about this is it's actually a transparent window too, so I can go back and start working on code. You can see this is actually all in GLSL shaders, which is kind of awesome. We felt a lot better about ourselves after that. So overall, like, nothing crazy as like a 3D model loader came out of this project, but the amount of learning that came out of it was colossal, and that's not something to underestimate. A lot of people think like you need to, if you're in programming, be like Mark Zuckerberg and just come out with like an industry-leading billion-dollar idea, but that's not entirely true. You don't even really need a tangible project if there's a good amount of learning going on. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed my independent study summary.